Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So today we're continuing our series on Charlie Munger's Psychology of Human Misjudgments. We're going to talk about the 22nd cognitive bias, Authority-Misinfluence Tendency. So first I'm going to read out of Poor Charlie's Almanack. You can see right here on your screen where to order this book if you don't have your copy yet. One of the best business investing books of all time. So we're going to read out of Poor Charlie's Almanack, and then we're going to jump over to Chat GPT-4 to go a little bit deeper on this psychological tendency. So, authority-misinfluence tendency. Living in dominance hierarchies as he does, like all his ancestors before him, man was born mostly to follow leaders, with only a few people doing the leading. And so, human society is formally organized into dominance hierarchies, with their culture augmenting the natural follow-the-leader tendency of man. But automatic as most human reactions are, with the tendency to follow leaders being no exception, man is often destined to suffer greatly when the leader is wrong or when his leader's ideas don't get through properly in the bustle of life and are misunderstood. And so we find much miscognition from man's authority-misinfluence tendency. Some of the misinfluences are amusing, as in a case described by Cialdini. A physician left a written order for a nurse treating an earache as follows: 2 drops twice a day, ear. Okay? The nurse read it as rear. The nurse then directed the patient to turn over and put the eardrops in his anus. Other versions of confused instructions from authority figures are tragic. In World War II, a new pilot for a general who sat beside him in the co-pilot's seat was so anxious to please his boss that he misinterpreted some minor shift in the general's position as a direction to do some foolish thing. The pilot crashed the plane and became a paraplegic. Well, naturally, cases like this one get the attention of careful thinkers like Boss Buffett, who always acts like an overquiet mouse around his pilots. Such cases are also given attention in the simulator training of co-pilots who have to learn to ignore certain really foolish orders from boss pilots, because boss pilots will sometimes err disastrously. Even after going through such a training regime, however, co-pilots in simulator exercises will too often allow the simulated plane to crash because of some extreme and perfectly obvious simulated error of the chief pilot. After Corporal Hitler had risen to dominance in Germany, leading a bunch of believing Lutherans and Catholics into orgies of genocide and other mass destruction, one clever psychology professor, Stanley Milgram, decided to do an experiment to determine exactly how far authority figures could lead ordinary people into gross misbehavior. In this experiment, a man posing as an authority figure, namely a professor governing a respectable experiment, was able to trick a great many ordinary people into giving what they had every reason to believe were massive electric shocks that inflicted heavy torture on innocent fellow citizens. This experiment did demonstrate a terrible result contributed to by authority-misinfluence tendency, but it also demonstrated extreme ignorance in the psychology professoriate right after World War II. Almost any intelligent person with my checklist of psychological tendencies in his hand would, by simply going down the checklist, have seen that Milgram's experiment involved about 6 powerful psychological tendencies acting in confluence to bring about his extreme experimental result. Another example of authority-misinfluence tendency. When I once fished in the Rio Colorado in Costa Rica, my guide, in a state of shock, told me a story about an angler who'd earlier come to the river without ever having fished for tarpon. A fishing guide like the one I had runs the boat and gives fishing advice, establishing himself in this context as the ultimate authority figure. In the case of this guide, his native language was Spanish, while the angler, the fisherman's, native language was English. The angler got a big tarpon on and began submitting to many directions from this authority figure called a guide. Tip up, tip down, reel in, etc. Finally, when it was necessary to put more pressure on the fish by causing more bending of the angler's rod, the guide said in English, "Give him the rod, give him the rod." Well, the angler threw his expensive rod at the fish, and when last seen, it was going down the Rio Colorado toward the ocean. This example shows how powerful is the tendency to go along with an authority figure and how it can turn one's brain into mush. My final example comes from business. A psychology PhD once became a CEO of a major company and went wild, creating an expensive new headquarters with a great wine cellar at an isolated site. At some point, his underlings remonstrated that money was running short. "Take the money out of the depreciation reserves," said the CEO. Not too easy, because a depreciation reserve is a liability account. So strong is undue respect for authority that this CEO, and many even worse examples, have actually been allowed to remain in control of important business institutions for long periods after it was clear that they should be removed. The obvious implication: be careful whom you appoint to power, because a dominant authority figure will often be hard to remove, aided as he will be by authority-misinfluence tendency. So that's what Charlie has to say about authority-misinfluence tendency. Let's jump over here to ChatGPT-4. So I asked ChatGPT-4, what is authority-misinfluence tendency? How can it mislead? And what are some antidotes to avoid being misled? Authority-misinfluence tendency refers to the cognitive bias where people tend to give excessive weight to the opinions, advice, or orders of perceived authority figures, sometimes even when those figures are not experts in the relevant subject matter. This tendency can lead to poor decision-making, as individuals may follow the advice of an authority figure without critically evaluating the validity or appropriateness of the information provided. The authority-misinfluence tendency can mislead in various ways. First, blind obedience. People may follow the instructions of an authority figure without questioning their legitimacy or relevance. Number two, false expertise. People may believe someone is an expert in a subject matter simply because they hold a position of authority, even if they had no specialized knowledge in the area. Okay? You see this a lot with people who have PhD after their name, right? It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking they're an expert, right? They've done deep research and have deep knowledge on a wide variety of subjects. Even though it doesn't say specifically what area their PhD was received in. Number three, group conformity. People may conform to the opinions of authority figures to avoid social disapproval or maintain group cohesion, even if they believe the authority figure is wrong. Okay? It's a very strong pull in cults, right? I mean, there's a number of psychological biases that come together in these cults. But group conformity is clearly at play. Number 4, overgeneralization. People may assume that because someone is an authority figure in one area, their expertise extends to unrelated fields. Okay, that kind of relates to false expertise. So, antidotes to avoid being misled by authority-misinfluence tendency. Consider these. Number 1, maintain a healthy skepticism. Always be open to questioning the opinions and advice of authority figures, right? Everyone is fallible. Make sure you keep that in mind. Don't just take anyone's word blindly. Keep in mind that they can make mistakes and their expertise may not be relevant to the situation at hand. Even if it is relevant, there may be other biases that are coming in to distort anybody's particular perspective on a topic. Number 2, evaluate the evidence. Consider the evidence and reasoning behind an authority figure's statements or advice. Are there other credible sources that support or contradict their position? Look for independent verification of claims. Number 3, cultivate critical thinking. Develop the ability to think critically and analytically so you can evaluate the validity of information and the credibility of the source. Okay, kind of first principles thinking here. Number 4, educate yourself. Increase your own knowledge and understanding of a subject matter so you are less reliant on the opinions of authority figures and better equipped to evaluate their advice. Number 5, seek diverse perspectives. Engage with people who hold different viewpoints or have different areas of expertise to ensure a well-rounded understanding of a topic or issue. Finally, number 6, understand the context. Be aware of any biases, conflicts of interest, or ulterior motives that may influence an authority figure's opinions or advice. Right? In the investing world, how this shows up is often, somebody has an investment about something. And so they're preaching to the world the merits of this particular investment. Well, clearly there's a bias happening, right? There's incentive-caused bias, right? They really want to believe that this thing is an incredible investment, right? Because they have skin in the game, so to speak. So there's a lot to tease apart here. When you're listening to someone make an argument about something. So keep all of this in mind as we come across authority-misinfluence tendency in the world. It's everywhere, right? This is such a core part of human nature to have these power hierarchies, to follow the leader, right? So it's a very big one. Out of the 25 covered in this book, this is probably in my personal top 5 in terms of what's really important to pay attention to. So that's it, guys, on authority-misinfluence tendency. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care.